Today we're talking about 10 LLC mistakes that a lot of people make. Now, the first one is NAICS code, right? Here's the first mistake that a lot of people make. When people go into business, they don't think about, is this a lendable NAICS code, right? So in terms of, they're just thinking about, I need to get a business going, I need to get some money, but they don't think about the NAICS code, okay? So in terms of, they hear about people that are starting like a restaurant, right? Or they're in credit repair. So understanding that these are high-risk NAICS codes, okay? And like when people go over to like Navy Federal, right? And they're wondering, well, how come Navy Federal wouldn't even open up my business checking account? And the reason is because you have a high-risk NAICS code, okay? So people may think like an ATM, right? Or investment. So when you think of these, you have to keep in mind, these are high-risk NAICS code, all right? There's actually 15 of them, to be exact, that are high risk. So in terms of when you're thinking about your LLC, starting your LLC, you really have to be very cautious in terms of the NAICS code to make sure that it's a lendable. Now, I'm not saying in terms of these NAICS code, these high-risk NAICS code, that they're not lendable, okay? It's just that because they're high risk, you're going to have to go through high-risk institutions in order to grab capital. That's what I'm saying, all right? Now, some of you are like, well, what about a restaurant? What would be a more lendable NAICS code? So when you're getting into restaurant, you want to look at something like food distribution, right? You want to look at something like food distribution. All right, in reference to credit repair, document preparation. All right, that's what I mean. In reference to ATM, the reason that it's high risk is because they look at it as if potential of money laundering. All right, now in reference to investments, going back to real estate investment, doing your trading and things of that nature, because it looks as if you're gambling with their money, this is what makes it a high risk NAICS code as well. So that's number one, the high risk NAICS code. Now, number two, people make this mistake. People will go and get their EIN number before they get their paperwork from the Secretary of State. The reason that you do not want to do this is because if you get your EIN number first, and then you had your name, say, Jeff Timms, right? Jeff Timms Lumber or something like that, right? Well, the thing about it, if there's an existing Jeff Timms Lumber with the Secretary of State already registered as an LLC, guess what's going to happen? Your paperwork gets rejected, all right? Not only that, now you can't use this EIN number, all right? That's the reason I tell people, before you get your EIN number, always wait till the Secretary of State clears it. Because some people like, say, Facebook, right? You cannot use the name Facebook on your company because it's copyright infringement and it's trademark. So you cannot use that name. So that's the reason I tell people you have to be very careful in terms of when you're trying to structure your business and you jump ahead and get that NAICS code, because you're really going to put yourself at a disadvantage by wasting money and wasting time, all right? And I'll tell you something else. A lot of people think because they have a DBA or an existing LLC, well, I'll just use this same EIN number. You cannot do that. The reason is, if you do that, you can end up having an audit. That's right. You can have an audit with the IRS. So you do not want to put yourself in that position, okay? So it's better, if you're going to start a new LLC, then do it the proper way. But don't try to use an existing LLC, same EIN number, to start another business. You're going to put yourself at a disadvantage, okay? Now, another one is business bank account. This is so important. A lot of people don't understand. So what people will end up doing, assuming they're doing the right thing, people's favorite bank account is Navy Federal, right? Well, here's the problem with Navy Federal. Because they do not report to the business credit bureaus. Now, Navy Federal, yes, they will give you funding for your business with no revenue in the business with the right NAICS code. That's a given, all right? However, in terms of your business transactions, they will not report those business transactions to the business credit bureaus, all right? So that's the thing about it where people make the mistake. Or they may use another community bank or region bank or something like that. So when you use those type of bank and you're expecting for like your business transaction to report to the business credit bureaus, then you end up not having anything. I had clients, I've told you in the past, clients that had processed over $1 million in a community bank, over $1 million. They had an engine problem with one of their trucks, and all they needed was $10,000. Because their credit wasn't strong enough, that institution will not give them funding. And because those transactions were never reported to help build up the business credit, they were not able to get capital. Okay, so I had to find third-party lending institutions that would just go off of their financial statements in order to give them the capital that they need. So that's another reason why you have to be careful with the business bank accounts. Now, in terms of some of the favorite ones that I tell you, and these are your tier ones you have to start with. It would either be a Citi Bank, Chase, or Capital One. The reason is because they report to most of the business credit bureaus. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the business credit bureaus, you're talking about Experian, Equifax, Small Business Financial Exchange, and then that information is picked up with Dun and Bradstreet, right? Now, here's the thing about it, where people get confused. They figure that, well, I have an 80 Paydex or 100 Paydex. How come I'm not getting any funding? Because 90% of the institutions, they don't use Dun and Bradstreet to determine if they're going to give you funding. That's the problem. So when people trying to, and it's important to have net 30s, and we're going to talk about that. But when people just focus on different net 30s, like your Granger, Seton, and Uline, that's not helping you build up your business credit file so that you can get funding. All right. Another thing in reference to what people make a mistake, number 4, is no daily or weekly deposits. Right. So if you don't have daily or weekly deposits in your business bank account, this isn't going to help your business bank rating. Okay, you have to show activity in the business bank account. Now, the average, I tell people, usually if you can, at least about $50 and upwards. That's what you should be doing at least weekly. If you can do it daily, great. But the thing about it, this does help with your business bank rating. And this is another challenge that a lot of people that start LLCs and stuff, they're not aware of. It's not explained to them. So they miss out on the opportunity to get funding because they just open up the business account. They don't do anything with it. They don't do anything with it. So you miss out on that. Now, number 5 we're talking about is, this is very important. And I want to talk about this. Payroll. A lot of people will start their business bank account and they won't even consider setting up payroll. By the way, for those of you that need help setting up payroll, click the link in the description. Now, here's the reason why, okay? When you have transactions going in and out of your bank account and you are working for your LLC, and whenever an LLC makes revenue, it has to be distributed to everybody on board. Okay, that income has to be distributed. And so sometimes when this income is distributed, it pushes up your adjusted gross income. All right. And so what people get in trouble at is because they overstate their expenses, and this creates an audit. So that's the reason I tell people you have to be very careful. Now, when most people they go to like an attorney or a CPA to set up the LLC, the main thing that these companies are focusing on is helping you hide from the IRS. Okay. They're not looking at you as a growth company. And because they put you in this structure as an LLC, then you're not recognized as a growth company. So with financial institutions, if you don't have high revenue in the business, then they end up being more conservative. Okay. And by the way, everybody that you have added on that LLC that takes distribution in it, when they apply for like a card, they pull everybody's credit. That's right. They pull everybody's credit. All right. So that's just a few things that you need to know. Number 6 is net 30 accounts, right? Now, where I had mentioned about net 30 accounts, choosing the right net 30 accounts, this is very important because a lot of people, they choose net 30 accounts because people are just throwing them out there. Get a Granger, get a Seat, get a Uline, right? And so when you go for those type of net 30 accounts, guess what? Those net 30 accounts, those companies, they may want you to invest in net 30 accounts anywhere from 60 to 90 days before they report, okay? And this is what creates the problem because people assume that, oh, I got all these net 30 accounts, but they're not reporting, or they may not be showing up, all right? And here's another thing about trade credit that you have to understand, even financial credit to be exact, that on your business credit file, it's not going to say the name of the company. It will not say the name of the company, okay? It'll tell you like what type of, if it's a financial company or if it's a trade company or something like, but it's not going to tell you the exact name that's on the company. So in terms of net 30s, how many net 30s that you should? I always tell people between 4 and 5. 4 and 5 max. You don't need 10, 20, 15. It's not necessary. But choosing the right net 30s is the point that most people miss. So that's the reason, like when I'm talking, I always tell you about NAV because it gives you 2 trade lines. That's right. NAV can give you 2 trade lines. One trade line is when you sign up for the business credit, personal credit monitoring. All right. Then the second trade line is when you sign up for the NAV Prime card. The NAV Prime card, again, it's an unsecured card, no credit check, no deposit, no business history. Okay. So that's the reason why both of those cards. But now, again, the challenge is with this here NAV Prime card. The challenge is most people will get this card and they won't use it. And because you don't use it, you don't get that other trade line because there's no data reporting. So that's the challenge that most people have. Well, how come I'm not getting the 2 trade? You're not using the card. You're not using the pay now. And again, with some of these trade lenders, these trade lines and stuff, you have to keep in mind, they don't report immediately. They can take up anywhere from 30 to 60 days for it to hit your business credit report. All right. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Another one, you have a Crown Office. Okay. And then you have Chertsey. Then you have Fair Figure. Now, Fair Figure, let's talk about this for a minute. It's similar to NAV. The only difference is that, granted, you sign up, they give you access to your business credit report and personal credit report. By the way, with NAV as well as Fair Figure, it's going to be your Vantage. It's going to be your Vantage score. Okay? It's going to be your Vantage score report. So just keep that in mind on the personal credit file. It's going to be your Vantage. It will not be a FICO. All right? So keep that in mind. That being said, in reference to Fair Figure, yes, you can get up to 2 trade lines, right? So you can get 2 trade lines from them. So in reference to get 2 trade lines for them, if you have a business that is operational, okay, and you're generating anywhere at least the minimum $2,000, $2,500 a month, they will give you a line of credit. That line of credit is going to go from 500 up to 500,000. Okay, but you have to be generating revenue in the business, all right, in order to get that second trade line. But just say that you was able to get that second trade line. Now you have 2, 4, 5, 6 different trade lines that you have that'll be reporting, because these here Crown Office, they're backed by Dun and Bradstreet, right? So they're Equifax, Experian, and V. Equifax, Experian, V, and V. Okay? So this is your Equifax, Experian, Then, in reference to Fair Figure, you have Small Business Financial Exchange, Experian, Equifax, credits. So in terms of, you do not need a whole lot. Now, you do have one, it's Incredible, and it's for utilities. Like you can have your utilities and stuff like your phone. Number 7, LLC owners make, okay? And this is very important. Number 7 is setting business in other states, okay? Setting up a business in another state. Here's the reason why that can come back and bite you in the butt, all right? A lot of financial institutions, if you reside in one state and you open up that business, say in Delaware, or you do South Dakota or Wyoming or something like that, you're trying to avoid taxes, you know, or you're trying to avoid somebody figuring out, well, who owns the corporation? Look, if you just starting out and you ain't got 2 nickels to rub together, why would you go through that trouble? It doesn't make any sense, all right? And I'll tell you another thing. Whatever state that liability is created in, that state laws could supersede where you actually have the business structured. Do you understand that? So what that means is that, say that your friend Albert, or say that you set up your business in Florida, right? But you stay in Atlanta. Now, the liability was created in Atlanta. Guess what? That person that takes any type of charges against your business in the state of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, then the state of Georgia's laws could supersede where you actually have the business structured. All right? Now, I'm just telling you, it's not worth it. Also, in terms of when you set up a business in another state that you're not actually doing business in or reside in, it throws a red flag up for financial institutions. All right? This is very important, because people, well, they deny me or they won't open up the business bank account and stuff like that. It throws up red flags. All right? So also, say that the state that you're actually doing business in and you reside in, if they're offering like grants or something like that, and your business is registered in another state, you may not qualify for those grants, even though you're doing business in that state. All right, that's another thing. So many people would try to do this. At the same time, they end up missing out on opportunities. So that's the reason I would tell people, set the business up in your own state. All right. Now, here's something else that you must understand. Number 8, no website, no corporate email. No website, no corporate email. Many people, they go to the bank and they don't have a website set up. They don't have a corporate email set up. So they miss out on the opportunity for that bank to open up. Because what they're trying to do, here's the reason why that you should really consider this, all right? Whenever you set up a new company, a new LLC, the reason you should set up your website and your corporate email is so when they actually open up your business bank account and stuff, they're going to ask you, okay, do you have a website? So you're satisfying them, their curiosity and stuff like that. That's another thing. One thing that I should have mentioned in the beginning, number 9, is the name. Remember we talked about naming your business? Naming your business is very important. Now here's something that most people are not aware of. If you have just a LLC, all right, and you have that there, that comma there, all right, if that comma is not on your EIN, then this also can stop them from opening up your business bank account or your abbreviations, all right? So this, many people know this abbreviation as street, right? So then some people will abbreviate this, thinking that that means street. Well, financial institutions think that's a suite office, right? So that's the reason you have to be very careful to make sure all the information matches. That's the reason, like I said, getting access to NAV or to Fair Figure, and I'll put a link down below to make sure that all your business information is matching up. So when you're applying for open up a bank account, when you're applying for like a credit card or a loan and things of that nature, that the information matches. All right, this is very important. Now, here's another thing. Let's talk about this, and this is big. This is an address, okay? We talked about the out of state, but this here address. And people want to know, should I use a virtual or home? All right, here's the problem with this virtual address. A lot of institutions are running to where people are recycling this virtual address. So say that you went and got a virtual address, okay? So you went and got a virtual address and you'd have set your company up and stuff like that. However, somebody prior to you had already used that address and that applied for like trade credit and for loans and stuff, and they defaulted on all of that. Well, now that person's name plus the company plus the address is flagged, okay? So because those are flagged, now when you try to apply for a loan or a credit card or something like that, it's going to make it more challenging for you. That's the reason I tell people in terms of, I know you're like, well, I don't want people looking at my home address, but this is what you do. You apply for your EIN and everything, your home address, and then when your bank account and stuff, you have it forwarded at a separate address, okay? So that way you're still protected. But in terms of when you use these virtual offices like this for everything, again, because somebody else probably had that address before you, they end up having a home address versus a virtual office is not going to stop you from getting business funding, all right? It's not going to stop you from getting business funding, okay? Now, here's one other, and this is very important. Number 11 is using companies, old corps, right? When you're trying to use an old corp, I talked about this, about the EIN number and stuff like that. When you try to use an old corp and it doesn't have taxes, it doesn't have bank statements, then even though it's an old corp, that's not going to justify you getting funding because there's no relationship, no proofs of revenue and stuff like that. So that's the reason I tell people, hey, if you want to use a corp and there's no taxes and no bank statement, you might as well just go ahead and just start up another company. Now, I don't tell people to dissolve their old company. If you want to use your old company, then you have to bring your taxes up to date. All right. For most lending institutions, especially if you're trying to go after funding without your personal credit, use an EIN. For most lending institutions, they want you between 3 to 6 months of bank statements. 3 to 6 months of bank statement. All right. So if you have any other question about business credit funding, personal credit funding, removing negative items off the credit, click the link in the description. Schedule a one-on-one consultation. Thank you.